I work as a storyteller, a playwright, and a puppeteer, and a lot of what I work with is magical realism and kind of weaving in mythology. I work as a storyteller in the National Leprechaun Museum and with a group called Tales from the Shadows. And with Tales from the Shadows, we meld together shadow puppetry, storytelling, and kind of try to bring back stories or use stories in a different way to the way they've usually been seen. So we might take a Grimm's fairy tale, or we take a family story or an Irish mythological story and try to present it to children in a way that it's not usually seen. Well, in my work with the Leprechaun Museum, we use all Irish myth completely, but I'm starting to kind of meld in Irish myth into my other work that I do. So I've been
with Tales from the Shadows.
With Tales from the Shadows, yeah.
Right.
So using kind of folklore stories like the story of Lusmore, and we're kind of starting to work a little bit with the Cesar story, a little bit with the stories of Macha, and kind of bringing them in to show Irish stories with a woman at the forefront. Because a lot of the ones I would have heard growing up in school would have been Fionn McCool or Cuchulainn, and not an awful lot with a female male main character. The only one I can remember hearing about in primary school was Queen Maeve, who was always depicted as kind of the baddie within the stories.
Because you told me that a lot of the work you've done with Tales from the Shadows was with Nordic and Germanic myth.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're now trying to weave in a bit of the Irish.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Not like particularly Germanic myth. When you look at, say, Grimm's fairy tales and stuff, that's something that, like, it's what Disney uses a lot in their stuff. It's what people hear as bedtime stories, whereas Irish myth, particularly within Ireland, kind of has got sidelined a bit. So there's kind of like an impulse to bring it back and to use it more within kind of my work, and kind of melding it into some of the playwriting that I do as well. I studied drama in Trinity. Actually, it's kind of that was when my interest in myth and folklore would have kind of begun. Begun properly, because I was reading a lot of plays that would have been very like canonical, very inaccessible to working class people, or to people who wouldn't be doing a drama degree. Traditional storytelling would have been bards in people's houses or shanachis in people's houses, not only like telling the stories to them, but they become part of the stories. Because if you're in a tiny little cottage out in the west and you've packed 20 people in, because that's everyone who lives in a 1 mile radius, and you're all sitting listening to this story, it's a lot more intimate, a lot more accessible, and kind of, particularly if it's dark outside. That's what we tried to do with the shadow puppets, is to kind of bring alive the storytelling. So not only are you hearing it, but you're seeing it, and it's a lot more intimate and intense and accessible. Because whenever we do a shadow puppet show, after we've finished telling the stories and we've gone through the whole thing, we invite the children and the audience behind so that they can create their own stories with the light and the shadow. Particularly, you see a lot with children. We had a show in the Royal Irish Academy of Music recently, and they we invited the children behind, and they began to tell one of the stories that we had just told them, but they changed it.
Oh, right.
And they started to kind of create their own ending that was different, and completely without prompting. They just went ahead and did this with the puppets that we left out for them, and I found it really interesting to watch that in terms of like the Irish storytelling tradition of the Shanachie.
Yes.
That they would tell a story, and the next time it's told, it changes a little bit, and it changes a little bit,
So
and it becomes the story of the teller, and it has its own life.